And good morning. It is 26 minutes after 7 o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning from the Walker Aviation Museum, Robert Sherman back with us. Good morning, Robert.
Morning.
How you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. How's life at the museum this morning?
It's picking up. It's just on the verge of major changes.
Okay.
We've got Thursday Plateau coming out and saying you need to be out there all day because we're going to be out there running a cable up through the attics and stuff.
Oh, okay.
They come in there for some high-speed internet.
Oh, good. Is this to help with some of the STEM stuff?
Yeah.
We
have a computer that we purchased and on a nice table, and we got from Glen Furniture, and then we got a little stand that goes up and down that we can run some programs for half of the students that aren't running on our flight simulators, which are now there.
Okay, cool.
And Bob Donnell and I out there have already crashed 3 or 4 times ourselves. And I'm thinking, well, maybe these younger kids, they're at that generation where they won't be out there.
They got the better coordination with their hand-eye coordination.
Playing the computer games and stuff. But anyway, our EduStation from STEM Pilot Incorporated, it's a really pretty advanced device. It can fly 50 different aircraft.
Oh, wow.
And land at any airport in the world. So if you could get for example, an airline pilot would be looking in the door at the museum and say, come on in here. You can fly an F-22 and land at, in...
National Airport, Reagan National Airport.
No, or you can land it in Moscow at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You set the time and whatever. So anyway, it's pretty advanced. But
although now I think about it, if you're trying to learn to land a plane, the Roswell Airport might be the most forgiving one of the
That's
bunch.
right. That's what So they have what we're trying to do is come up with the right scenario for the kids for a first-time exposure for only like maybe 15, 20 minutes. What's the best one? And they have some that are already done with people talking to you. Mm-hmm. One is a Cessna 172 flying already, and then you just have it fly through 3 or 4 squares as you make a turn, like a 180-degree turn. And then one is a takeoff. And they have one that you take off out of New York and you climb out and you turn around and you fly by the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, cool.
Stuff like that. So anyway, we're trying to figure out, and we're going to get some young kids out there as our prototypes, kind of
testers.
Find out which would probably be the best to have for the groups of kids that come through.
That's cool.
But our main thing that scares me the most right now is we've got to get some people out there to help do that. Besides just myself and Bob Donnell.
So you're looking for some volunteers and things?
Yeah, volunteers or docents or whatever come out and help us.
So if you love history, if you love military history, if you're a technical guru.
Yeah, and you already are, flight simulators or whatever.
Or pilot types, if this is your field of expertise, or, maybe this is what you did for a living before you retired, or you're doing it for a living now. Would love to have you come out and be a part of the, we have a great group of volunteers that are part of the Walker Aviation Museum, and always looking for more to serve in various capacities on the board, docents to helping making and obtaining and getting parts of these exhibits and things together. So
right.
So if you love to do that, please reach out to the museum. Several ways you can do it. There is a Walker Aviation Museum Facebook page. You can always shoot a message on there, and someone will get back to you. You can go to the Walker Aviation Museum actual website, www.wafbmuseum.org. There you can learn more about the museum. You can make donations to the museum. You become a member of the, if you want to be a member. And then, of course, if you want to learn more about serving on the board or serving as a volunteer or any of that kind of stuff, you'll find more information about that on the website, too.
I noticed when we were setting up our computer, which is going to be installed probably Friday or Monday after we get the internet up, I guess you have to come up with an email. So we now have an email.
Oh, an official email.
So that'll be in place next week. That's going to be walkeramuseum@gmail.com.
Okay.
Instead of saying Walker Aviation Museum, we're trying to shorten it up and just said Walker A Museum, but no dots, no dashes or anything. Just
walkeramuseum@gmail.com.
Yeah, the A kind of being an abbreviation for aviation. So.
Cool. Gotcha. Or you get a bunch of people know, what's the A? Who's Walker? Walker Anderson? Who are we talking about?
Yeah, I didn't know Walker had a middle name. That's right. I hadn't thought about that. But
Well, I'm good with it. It was funny. I'm just making a joke.
we could have said Walker B-52 Museum, whatever. No, we didn't say that.
But please check it out when you get a chance here, and looking for always looking for mom volunteer support, and then of course any updates on hours, openings, things like that. You'll find them.
We're kind of looking at the constantly changing, not constantly, but whatever the flight schedule is. So when we kind of have it open, so there's people, and we're out there working on it, trying to get it up to speed, and we're getting closer. You got people kind of poking their head in the door. Come on in, I don't care. Walk around.
Sure.
Yeah, but so
your job
Bob and I are out there. We were kind of doing the embarrassing thing. We were holding these naked mannequins, trying to get their flight suits on and stuff. So anyway, we were trying to move them around. I'll tell you what, putting clothes on a mannequin and then moving the mannequin around and have these stands that have these rods that go up and then go up their legs or something. Yeah, it's kind of weird. And it's unusual, and it's really kind of difficult to get those things.
It's kind of like, kind of like when you're like you hear the term dead weight. When you carry something that weighs 30 pounds, and it's a box or something. But
part of the other problem is that the legs and arms and hands come off.
Yeah,
and if you kind of hold it wrong, and it turns, and then all of a sudden the arm falls off or the leg falls off. So anyway.
Yeah, so the comedy ensues when the dressing happened of the
That's right.
So, but folks, definitely check it out here and get involved. And like I said, there's a lot of cool stuff there. And I know, how's the storage unit over at Kmart? Does it get pretty full? Is it pretty? Because you guys keep
at the U-Haul.
Yeah, the U-Haul over by the old Kmart.
Yeah, well, it's pretty full right now, but it's nice. Indoor, like inside the mall. It's real, the top of it's all screened, so you just they all are connected in a way. But I guess that's up there for security, so people can't go in their own thing and crawl over the top of the wall into the next guy's thing, whatever.
Sure. Well, at some point, hopefully, you can get some displaying areas for some of this stuff and all that.
Oh yeah, we're.
Of course, one thing if you haven't listened to us in past conversations here with Robert, we talk about the museum and all the things happening there, but there's a long storied history of Roswell Army Airfield and Walker Walker Air Force Base. We've talked about some of the aircraft that the base has called home. We've talked about, the B-47s. We've talked about a couple of different aircraft.
Yeah.
One of the aircraft that called Walker home for quite a few years, actually, was the KC-135, the refueler.
Right.
Which... I didn't realize it was there that long, 50s and 60s. It was 10 plus years. It
was 57.
Okay,
when they came out. Yeah,
and they were there up through all the 60s
until the closure.
So the base closed.
Oh yeah, sure.
69 or wherever it was the base closed.
Because they're still flying.
Yeah, I guess so. There's not many of them, but
there's quite a few.
It's funny how certain aircraft just have that shelf life. I mean, B-52, we've talked about that one. But,
right.
But yeah, those KC-135s, KC-10s refuelers, they've got.
I don't know exactly which one, but when I was doing the history of the KC-135, it talked about there's 6 fixed-wing aircraft with over 50 years of continuous service, and KC-135 is one of them. B-52 is one of them.
Wow!
But I didn't get the list of the other 4 off the top of my head.
U-2 maybe. They still use U-2s on.
Oh yeah, U-2s are still flying.
Yeah.
So that would be one of them right there.
Let me think. What other ones would A-10 maybe? No, when did A-10 come out?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's not that old.
Yeah,
I think that's 70s. I don't know. Now I'm going to look because I'm kind of curious now.
Yeah,
myself.
me too.
I'm kind of, some of the.
Of course, you said U-2, and I didn't mention it. Of course.
Yeah.
I worked for 11 years with the U-2 in the Air Force.
C-130 maybe.
Huh?
Maybe a C-130.
Yeah.
That's been around a long time.
That's interesting because I worked with the U-2 pretty early in my career. I was in the Air Force 30 years, and I've been out of the Air Force for 23 years. A little easy math.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Carter I used to have in Roswell High School would be mad at me like, come on, Robert. Figure that out.
You got this. Get your slide rule right. You got this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. We Roswell High School class of 61, everybody took slide rule.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine too your job in the military with with the test flights and the train suits and all that, all the calculations and stuff done for that stuff, there wasn't computers laying around to do that stuff for you automatically. You have to
back in the old days.
You have to do the math yourself. And again, that's why I think you and I had this conversation. That's why, when you look at like the missile silos and all of that stuff, the feat of engineering is quite impressive that they were able to build those things and to do what they do without the modern conveniences of computers and everything doing all the hard, heavy lifting calculations and all that. Yeah, they're pouring
even the early
8 feet of concrete.
Early space flights.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
That movie with those gals that were doing the calculations.
Oh, yeah.
I think John Glenn was one of them saying, I'm not going off unless that gal approves of what we're,
Oh, I can't remember the movie. I know the one you're talking about. Yeah. The one where the ladies that are engineers for NASA.
Yeah, they did all the algebra and stuff. And
yeah,
that was interesting. I had an interesting. Oh, never mind. This Saturday I was out at the Ocho Miles at the Bottomless Lakes.
Race.
Yeah, of course it wasn't a race for me. It was basically
a bike ride,
a bike survival ride.
It's like, just don't fall over.
I told my wife, I came home and I said, I enjoy going out there and doing 2-3 laps or whatever, but I said it's kind of depressing because now I've got everybody going by me. And she said, no, it's good that you're out there. I said, well, yeah, but it also reinforces the fact that probably need to get a little more better in shape. I'll tell you what, that one hill, if you go out there and go counterclockwise, you go up that steep hill. You have to have some low gears, or you got to be pretty strong legged
or take a cab.
Take a cab, yeah.
I'm gonna work smarter.
That's why they should have a cab right at the bottom of that hill. Jump on there with a little bike rack and go up to the top, and then you can do the rest of the 7
That's not bad. Or compromise. Give us like a ski lift chair that you could put a bike like.
Yeah.
Like it's the Ski Apache or something.
Yeah. All these guys go by me like I used to ride, but blowing by me, and they'd actually lap me before I'd finished one lap.
Or a J-bar where you can stay on your bike and just hold on to it and let it pull you up the hill.
Yeah, that's right. I say, hey, Ken, you're doing a good job. I go, yeah, right. You just lap me.
Yeah, that's right. All those people doing that, they're doing it watching you, not doing it. No, just saying,
Yeah.
Don't take it too bad.
No. Okay, anyway, want to run through I'll run through a little quick history.
Yeah.
135 for everybody out there. Anyway, the Boeing 135 Stratotanker was a military aerial refueling aircraft, and it was developed by the Boeing 367-80 prototype along with the Boeing 707 airliner.
Okay.
And it was the Air Force's first jet-powered refueling tanker, and it replaced the KC-97 Strato freighter.
Okay.
Initially, it was tasked just to provide refueling for strategic bombers, to make them worldwide stuff. And that's what it was like. It was here at Roswell, Walker. And later, they were tasked to, refuel tactical fighters and fighter bombers in Vietnam and Desert Storm and, other wars that we've had since then.
Yeah.
The KC-135 entered service with the Air Force and at Walker around the 1957 time frame. And the KC-135 is one of 6, we mentioned already. It's been in service for over 50 years. KC-135 was continued to be in service, they think, until maybe about 2030, but they were talking of some severe and pretty high maintenance costs that are going on right now with aircraft. So it's questionable.
Wow.
It's been partially replaced by the Boeing KC-46 Pegasus. I've never seen one of those close up.
Is that a newer?
Newer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like when did that?
Jet tanker.
Okay. That come out and last, 20 years or 10 years? Or
I don't know. I think it's been out for a few, about last decade or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think they were around when I was in the 90s.
No, they weren't. That's something pretty new. But that's another Boeing aircraft. The KC-135 is structurally quite different from the Boeing 707 airliner. Besides, it's more narrow.
Okay.
And it's shorter. But they said even the frame and everything about the aircraft is really totally different than the airliner. So it's kind of interesting. Now, interestingly, the tanker's version, Lockheed's tanker version of the proposed Lockheed L-193 airliner with a rear fuselage-mounted engine was declared the winner in 1954 of competition for a jet air refueling aircraft. You're saying, really? Then, okay, well, however, at that moment, and when that happened, the Boeing already had the 135s flying.
Okay.
So Boeing's proposal, they said, I'll tell you what, Lockheed was 2 years away from delivery, So the Secretary of the Air Force, Harold Talbot, ordered 250 KC-135 tankers, because, 2 years is a pretty long time,
Yeah.
until Lockheed's design could be manufactured. In the long term, is obviously, if you know the history, in the end, orders for Lockheed tanker were dropped rather than supporting 2 tanker designs, maintenance-wise, in the Air Force. So Lockheed never produced its jet airliner as a result, and while Boeing would eventually dominate the market with the family of airliners based on the 707. So that's kind of an interesting, I didn't even realize that the Lockheed won the initial fly-off.
Huh.
But because they couldn't deliver in 2 years, and they went ahead and bought 250, then they started saying later on, like, why we want to buy another aircraft? This is great. And then have 2 different airplanes you have to deal with, maintenance, parts,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
I always, it makes me think in a bigger picture, like when, say Lockheed gets the contract, what does Boeing do? I mean, do they try to sell the aircraft to other countries? Are they trying to, they've got a lot of money invested.
Oh, yeah.
I always wonder, I never thought about that. It's like, well, what happens? Do they scrap the idea outright, or do they try to sell it to somebody else, or do they try to convert the idea to something else? I always
I don't know.
never
Maybe
thought
we
about
get
that.
some
till just
Lockheed guy in here we can find out.
now. Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
So anyway, 850 KC-135s and other variants of the 135 were ordered by the Air Force. Reconnaissance and command post variants of the 135 were operated by Strategic Air Command from 63 to 92, and when at that time they were reassigned to Air Combat Command. And the engines are kind of interesting. The KC-135 engines, when I was going to school here, and planes were flying around. Those were the Pratt & Whitney J57-P-59W. Anyway, turbojet engines that produced 10,000 pounds of dry thrust. So you had 4 of those. That's 40,000. But they would produce 13,000 pounds of wet thrust. And you think, okay, what the heck is wet thrust? Remember water injection?
Yeah.
Yeah, wet thrust was accomplished by injecting 670 gallons of water into the 4 engines over a 3-minute period. You say, excuse me? You don't squirt water into it. Okay, approximately 9/10 of a gallon of water per second into each engine. And the water would cool the air in the engine to increase its density and also reduce turbine gas temperatures, which was a primary limitation on many jet engines.
So is that kind of a radiator?
Yeah, and this allows more fuel to be added for proper combustion and created more thrust for a short period of time. It bumped it up to 13,000.
Okay, because I'm thinking when I hear throwing, I'm thinking like an afterburner throwing fuel on something to get some more.
But it's actually squirting water into
Interesting, to cool it, to give it more power.
Yeah, because you can remember hear them taking off, and then they go into the water injection, and it lasts for about 3 minutes till they've taken off.
Okay. So in essence, it's a fancy radar. Or, a fancy radiator.
Yeah, right, I guess. But it's actually putting the water into the engine. Yeah.
But instead of if I've had some storage tank, it's just going directly on the engine.
So then the 707 airliners were retired in the late 70s, and in the 80s, early 80s, the KC-135s were retrofitted with these larger turbofan engines, which bumped up the thrust a little bit and enabled them to offload about 14%. They got 14% more fuel efficient, and they could offload about 20% more fuel during long duration flights. And the last modification was similar to the engine that you see when the planes come out here to visit. Mm-hmm. They got those big turbofan, and they're really close to the ground. It's pretty scary looking. But they retrofitted 500 aircraft with the new, what they call the CFM56. The military designation was an F-108 high bypass turbofan engines, made by General Electric and Safran. And these ones that you see when they come in here, and we do tours out there with the kids, and those produce about 22,500 pounds of thrust. And so you compare that with the initial one was 10,000 or 13 with the water. So that's about a 100% increase over the initial engine. And because of that, they can offload about 50% more fuel on long-range fueling missions, which makes them a lot more efficient. And also, when they take off, it's 99 decibels of sound versus the initial 126 decibels. Because I remember those tankers with water injection; they were noisy suckers.
So it made them quieter.
Yeah.
This is. I imagine a kid has asked this question because I never thought about it till just now. When the KC-135 runs out of fuel, can it refuel itself, or does it? Like, can it tap into its storage tanks to fuel its engine tanks, or does it have to hit a tanker or land and refuel?
Oh yeah,
like
you could
everybody
think
else?
theoretically they could just keep on flying around the
Yeah,
world.
I never thought
Yeah.
about it till just now. I was like, how do they get gas? Do they
Yeah.
can they tap into their own tanks, or
Well,
do
it
they
depends.
have
You
to?
know, like they were carrying JP7 for
Yeah.
SR-71, and they wouldn't because the engine.
Yeah,
wouldn't
because
take
it's
it.
different gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too.
But
so.
if it was just regular fuel, I think I'm not sure.
I don't know either.
Good question.
Well, next time you see the crews when they're in
Yeah,
town,
I'll ask them that.
ask them. I'm curious.
Okay, and then a quick crash history, which is unfortunate, but one of the worst crashes that occurred over the last 50 years occurred at Walker on 3rd of February, 1960. I remember this because I was standing outside North Junior High. KC-135A crashed on takeoff in extremely gusty crosswind conditions at the Walker Air Force Base. The airplane skidded into 2 other KC-135 tankers and a hangar and burst into flames, and the aircraft was on a training flight, but the instructor pilot was occupying a jump seat rather than one of the pilot seats as directed by the local commander, and the destruction of 3 aircraft along with the death of 6 of the crew on board the aircraft,
Oh, name.
plus 2 deaths of people on the ground made this one of the worst mishaps in the history of
Wow.
the KC-135.
And what year was that?
1960, February 3rd.
And that was here in Roswell?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Not, it's tragic, but
One of the guys I ride motorcycles with, he was a fireman at the time, and he vividly remembers that day.
and firefighters know this, but aircraft fires with the jet fuel's a little bit different ball of wax than like your house fires and things like that. They're dealing with some pretty interesting chemicals and ways to put that out and all that.
Now, 5 years later, on 3rd of June, 1965, a KC-135 lost electrical power on takeoff and crashed at Walker, killing all 5 on board.
Wow.
And then, as a side note, when I was stationed at Beale on the 29th of April, 1977, I remember coming to work, and there was a plane out there all burnt, and there was something all over the runway. Anyway, a KC-135 from Castle was practicing night landings, takeoffs and landings at Beale, and it hit 6 cows that had strayed on the runway.
Oh, no.
From a hole in the perimeter fence, and basically it tore off the landing gears.
Oh, wow.
And it, of course, aborted takeoff, and it slid off the end of the runway, caught fire, and it was destroyed. But all 7 crew members were able to get out.
Good.
And
Did they have a steak dinner afterwards?
I was going to say, they canceled all work. We all went to the runway and had barbecue for 2 days.
They grilled up burgers and steaks, yeah.
But literally, I mean, it was gross because the landing gear was laying off the one side of the runway, and then there was pieces of cows all over, up and down the runway.
I can imagine that.
Can you imagine, though, hitting a cow going over 100 miles an hour? Or
Yeah.
that would just
I'm
definitely...
surprised only the gear got damaged. That's...
Well, once it knocked the gear off, then the plane
Yeah,
just laid on the ground and it
Yeah.
slid off and burned. So anyway, that was pretty crazy.
The thing is, they probably turned that aircraft around. It probably went back into service a year later, 6 months later, I bet.
No, it burned up.
Oh, was it gone?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as of 2020, 52 KC-135s have been lost in accidents. I spent a while the other night reading about all the different accidents during the over 60 years of service, and involved 385 fatalities.
Wow.
But if you look at that, there's about 7 people died on each accident.
Well, and if you look at the hundreds of thousands of missions that aircraft,
a lot of times they were collisions. They were doing air refueling and collided with the B-52 or collided with a fighter aircraft.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't think about it. You think you're surprised there's not more of that because the work it does is in close proximity to other aircrafts, and so you're relying, and then especially if they're doing training for pilots on how to air refuel and things, and that's. They do a lot of simulator
just like
work.
a lot of these accidents are trainers or training going on.
Sure, they pilots and all that, they do these things hundreds of thousands of times. So when it comes to real world scenarios, when they're doing these things, it's like second nature to them. So
by the way, we were mentioning about the flight simulators.
Mm-hmm.
Those are thanks to money that we got through a grant from Excel Energy. So thank you to them.
Always helping out in our community.
Roswell Toyota has also helped us in the past, Pioneer Bank and Featherstone Development and other private individuals. But so anyway, and we've kind of worked with folks. I understand Jim Hill's left the museum.
Is he? He
No,
retired?
he was the director. Yeah,
Is he retired?
yeah, and the deputy director.
Enjoy the retirement.
She's taken over.
Okay.
But anyway, we have our display out there, and we're getting ready to get some touch screens put in. Supposedly this month, the people can come in and see some historical stuff.
Awesome.
So we'll have that in addition to the STEM items that are going in. We've already met recently with all the principals of the middle schools, and with Ruben Bolaños, and a bunch of other folks dealing with STEM at the university. So we're trying to set up. We've already got a tour set up for the 9th of November. Some kids coming in from middle school to the Walker Museum. So we've got to get everything up and going. And
so that's your dry run to see how the new stuff's going in.
Yeah, well, get some other dry runs because we got some other folks that Katie Yates, our secretary, she's great. She has I think a 7th grader that likes stuff like that. So I said, he's going to be our little prototype guy. Come out there. Sandy Correa, Bob Donnell, Juliana Halverson, Judy Armstrong, Jerry Cloffer, and Friar Jodek Nowaki are members of our board. So we need some more board members too, by the way.
If you'd like to be a part of that, please reach out. Again, shoot a message on Facebook or an email to the new email there, walkera@gmail.com, or contact through the website, www.wafbmuseum.org, and learn more there too. So,
right. So how are we doing on time?
We're about out. We're out of time.
About time to land the aircraft. Huh?
Time to check the red cord on the tires and put her to bed.
Okay, so when everybody goes to Amazon, buys your stuff, get on Amazon Smile, and
you'll find the link again to the website. That way, use that every time, and every time you shop Amazon, it doesn't cost you any extra, but a few pennies of your purchase go back towards the Walker Aviation Museum, and you get enough people doing that. The museum gets a nice little check at the end of each month doing that. So
that's right.
Great way to help out. So.
Okay.
Well, thank you, sir. As always, appreciate it. We'll see you here next month. We're going to be talking about Titan missiles next month. So
well,
saw you.
I think we've done that before. Atlas missiles.
Or Atlas. I'm sorry. I was talking Titan earlier, and that's what was in my head. Atlas missiles.
I know you were testing me to see.
But we'll talk about the Atlas missile, which obviously played quite an important role here in the Cold War in Roswell and southeast New Mexico.
Yeah, it was up and running during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Was very much a part of that. So.
Right.
Well, thank you, Robert. As always, appreciate it. We'll see you here next time.
Okay. Take care.
Right. It's 7:53.